Hello and welcome to Split Your Head. I'm your host Bob, and today's special guest is underground horror filmmaker Susana Kapostasy. Susana is the only contemporary shot-on-video director I've come across who embodies the spirit of the format's heyday, while also pushing it forward. Her unique take is bursting with authenticity and creativity. This can be seen in her recent revenge flick, The Emasculator, as well as her previous meta-slasher romp, The Night of the Zodiac from 2022. I've got Susana on to talk about why she's so damn good at making shot-on-video horror flicks. So here we go. How are you doing, Susana?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good. Yeah, we had a big talk before we started about making sure I got the pronunciations right.
Yeah, you nailed it. You're good.
Okay, yes. Awesome. Okay,
no,
so...
I have to say, one of my favorite things of like random YouTube reviews is people trying to pronounce my name, and it's always terrible.
Okay, so what's the worst that you've heard that you can remember?
Oh man, there was a recent one, and it was not a nice review either. He said like Kaposky or something.
Kaposky?
Yeah, like
how did he get that?
I don't know. He just added. He was not a well prepared reviewer. Right. And they always just do like the Susanna, which is whatever.
You did mention that you weren't crazy about that.
No, I'm not crazy about the banjo name.
So I've heard, like, my last name is McCulley, and I've heard people say McCullen. And I think what happens is that people almost just want to pronounce it the way they want to pronounce it add in letters. Because the way you just mispronounced it was like adding in a K when you didn't really need one. You know? That's crazy.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just a weird name.
So the Emasculator's been out for, what, like a couple months now?
Yeah, I think they put it out in Halloween pre-order, so a couple months.
Oh, sick. Okay. And so how's the reception been so far? I mean, aside from that one shitty YouTube review you came across.
I think pretty okay. Most of the reviews are solid and get it. Nobody's been like particularly offended or upset, which is good because I don't really think it's that offensive or upsetting. Everything controversial is a huge part of the story. The only thing that's really hitting us is it can't stream because of like the hardcore porn footage, and probably because the emasculation footage. I mean, it's an erect penis, so I'm guessing like Tubi wouldn't be cool with that. So that definitely like hurts getting it out there, but you know.
Yeah, have you guys like looked into alternative streaming services to
not really?
To get it out there?
I'm not sure. Like, I do like an OnlyFans. I don't even know how that site works. Like, would I put it on X Hamster and be like, yeah, just go on X Hamster and have all these weird pop-ups while you're watching the Emasculator?
Well, if you're gonna go that route, you might as well do a Vimeo and like charge, some money.
Yeah, I need to figure that out. I was afraid to make it public. I had just on YouTube, I posted like part of the rape scene just to show like the people I make movies with. Yeah. And somehow it got banned for that. And there wasn't even a penis. It was just like, like the cheese vision boobs going up and down it. And they like, I almost got my YouTube account deleted. Right. I'm like, this isn't even public. Why do you care? Yeah. So I'm like afraid to lose my gazillion-year-old Vimeo account. So keeping it private, keeping it as a private link has worked okay, but it's kind of a pain in the butt to stream that way.
Well, it's funny that you bring that up because like, that was, one of the many things I found really unique about the Emasculator, which I love, by the way.
Thanks.
The rape scene in it, I wouldn't even say it's like the most disturbing or graphic moment in the film. And so what kind of like influenced you to go that route?
I wanted the exploitation to be definitely aimed more at the men, and I wanted those scenes to be more uncomfortable. And I wanted kind of an empathetic rapist, I wanted to just challenge the perception. The biggest influence on that was probably Savage Streets. I don't know if you remember the rape scene in the locker room, and it's like the puny little greaser looking guy, like the Emasculator, where you can tell he doesn't want to do it, but he's just like desperate to fit in with these guys. And I don't want to like be controversial and say it's just as traumatic for him as it is for her, because it's not, but like he is kind of sort of getting raped too a little bit. And so in the Emasculator, I kind of wanted to push that as well. The other thing that makes the rape scene less I guess, problematic. Not problematic, but I didn't want the actors touching each other. And so I kind of storyboarded in a certain way where like they weren't even on the same bed at the same time. Yeah. And I think you would have probably had more of a dramatic effect, you know, if you had a big wide shot with it happening, but I didn't pay anybody anything, you know, it just wasn't. And I don't know if anybody would have been super comfortable with that, especially non-professionals not getting paid.
Oh, true.
But the biggest aspect was definitely wanting to exploit the guys and make like the emasculation scenes a little bit more uncomfortable.
Yeah. And it was effective in doing that. And I think, you know, as the film goes, you start adding more of those like hardcore inserts, and it feels like it's like adding to the overall atmosphere, you know, that this like, it almost feels like kind of claustrophobic in a way as it goes. And just like, oh man, it's like wall to wall sleaze, you know, and just not making you feel good.
No. And I also wanted the rape scene to be like a little bit humorous, only so
I could see that.
Only so that when it cuts to her crying, you feel like shit about yourself. Like you're chuckling at the cheese balls bouncing up and down. You're chuckling at the stuff the guys are saying. And then there's that hard cut where she's laying on the bed alone and crying. And then the viewer should hopefully be like, oh, should not have been laughing at that.
I like that. Yeah.
I don't know how well it worked, but that was definitely like, I wanted it to feel like you were one of the people in the room and the accused. Like, hey, everyone else is laughing. It's okay. And then we cut to the end where she's like running out of the bar and you're like, oh, this was real bad. You know, I wanted to make people feel like the high score arcade guy in The Accused, essentially.
Oh, man, see, I need to see The Accused. I feel like you really have done your research on this like. Oh,
The Accused is so
the rape revenge genre, you know?
Yeah, I mean, that's always been a favorite genre for whatever reason, but that's a good one. I mean, anything with Jodie Foster she's phenomenal. But
right, okay, that one's more of like a courtroom drama, though.
Very much so, yeah. Okay. And so is Lipstick, interestingly enough. Like the rape scene in that is one of the most brutal. As far as how he treats her and the things he does. Yeah. And it's like, you recover from that. Like her little sister watches and then the little sister gets mad because she has a crush on the professor or the music teacher that's raping the big sister.
Oh my God.
And so like, that's super twisted. And then she feels bad when she realizes, oh, I'm mad at my sister, but no, she's getting raped right now. And then it cuts to the courtroom scene where the defense attorney is just like fighting so hard for his client and questioning them, and like they put the little sister on the stand, and it is like a very long second rape, and it is very uncomfortable to watch. I would say more so than the rape. Lipstick is awesome.
Okay, I've definitely heard of that one. Like the main actress in that is
something Hemingway.
Mariel Hemingway, right?
And I think the little girl was her real life little sister, but I'm not good at actors and actresses. You know what? I can't even tell you. I can tell you that Sean Costello ripped part of that soundtrack for Water Power, but I can't tell you who directed Lipstick.
Okay, that's so funny. Water Power seems to come up in a lot of podcast episodes for some reason. Yeah, I still haven't seen it, but that seems like it would kind of fit in with your film in a way.
Well, the making of story for Water Power is ridiculous. Do you know it?
No.
So it was the year that Taxi Driver came out, which is huge for context. Sean Costello made pornos for the mob. So they like produced pornos. They said, okay, you're going to make this. Here's the money. Go. And so like this like big mafia dude calls him into his office. He says something, and I'm kind of paraphrasing from Sean Costello's blog. The mafioso says something about like, I have grandchildren, and I am ashamed to ask you this, and I don't want to see it. I don't want to know anything about it, but my informants tell me that enema porn is in. So here's the money, make an enema porn. And so Sean Costello's like walking home from the big porno meeting with the mafioso guy. Yeah. And he had just seen Taxi Driver. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to remake Taxi Driver with Jamie Gillis as like the Illinois enema bandit. And that's what he did. Oh, he even cribbed the soundtrack from Taxi Driver and somehow never got sued.
The Pino Donaggio soundtrack? Is that who did it?
No, it was, I thought it was Bernard Herrmann that did Taxi Driver.
Oh, you're probably right. I get those two mixed up a lot.
I am not great at like remembering credits, but I'm pretty sure it was Bernard Herrmann that did.
Well, you're doing better than me right now. So, but you made me think of another film when you were mentioning Mariel Hemingway's Star 80. Have you seen that one?
No, I've never even heard of that one.
Oh, that's the one based on, I can't remember her name, but she was like a model, like a Playboy bunny that had an abusive boyfriend that was her manager, and then he ended up like killing her in real life. And that's the manager is played by Eric Roberts, and it's like, oh my God, his performance in that is phenomenal.
What year is that? Because that sounds awesome.
I want to say 80, but maybe just because it's in the title, Star 80.
Well, I know Eric Roberts does a lot of shitty modern stuff now, so I'm thinking if that's... Yeah. But no, if it's 80s, like, yeah, I'm in. That sounds great. Star 80, is that what it's called?
Star 80, yeah. It's Bob Fosse directed it, oddly enough, who did All That Jazz and Cabaret, and he was more known for like being a dancer and doing, like, I think he did a film on Lenny Bruce and stuff, but Star 80 is like grimy.
Yeah, I need to watch that. I've never heard of it, so I'm excited to check that out.
Oh, well, look at that. Yeah.
Perfect.
So with doing The Emasculator as like a rape revenge film and you being a big fan of the genre, like, do you feel like it's a genre that, you know, you could see kind of being revived right now? Or do you kind of want Emasculator to like continue its legacy?
I'm not personally a sequel person.
Okay.
And Tim Ritter talked about like the ending kind of keeps it open for a sequel, but I'm not really a sequel person. I like to kind of leave the story where it lays, and then, you know, the viewers can kind of take it wherever they want. And obviously that leaves a lot in The Emasculator. There's a whole new story there after the ending, but
yeah,
I don't know that 2025 is a good year for rape revenge. People seem to not. Like, they wouldn't show The Emasculator in LA just because rape was like in the synopsis.
Interesting. Even if it's like rated R, you know, you only let people over 18 go see the film. Like,
no, there was some video store that was supposed to show it, and I was pretty excited because I'm like, cool, an Emasculator showing in LA. Like, maybe someone cool will see it. And then the store posted the synopsis, and people complained. Even though they had shown Silent Night, Deadly Night that week. And it's like, the rape scene in that, let's face it, is way more offensive. A baby is watching his mom get raped. Like, come on.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a problem, but like...
Yeah, but did they even watch The Emasculator?
No, it was just the synopsis. They were literally offended by the synopsis, which is stupid because, like, sure, the movie does different things, but the synopsis is like describes like 500 movies, like between the deranged Vietnam veteran, the rape revenge, like it is nothing new, which is what I like. I like a good cozy tropey storyline, but like I'm not introducing anything new, particularly with that synopsis, you know?
Yeah, that is true. And I think that's something I really loved about it, because it kind of allowed you to like flex your filmmaking muscles, you know? Like, I think because it was such a like tried and true story and structure that, I just kind of like honed in on more of like your creative, you know, angles and things like that. And like the weird detail. I mean, the cheeseball stuff is just so bizarre.
Yeah. Well, I initially, so why I wrote it that way was because I knew that like, I didn't want my actors touching, because I just didn't want to make anybody do that. So initially it was going to be a bucket of fried chicken because I just wanted her face covered. Right. And then I figured, like, if I need to double in, fine. Or if we need to shoot it both ways and do like the, you know, the masking thing. So it's POV and you can see that it's supposed to be two people. Great. But then I thought like KFC, like fried chicken buckets were much bigger than they actually are.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I actually bought KFC and like tried to put the bucket in it. It was like a crown. I'm like, okay, this is and then that's I thought cheese balls are and so that's how that whole character got written. As I'm like, a cheese ball bucket. And I think it turned out cooler because you've got like the, you know, the cheese vision where I glued the cheese dust to the little visor I put over the camera. And it's just, could you imagine like getting assaulted with cheese ball smell in your nose, and like you get home and you've got cheese dust like in your pores? That, I mean, I get that that's way less bad than the other thing that's happening, but it definitely would make it feel way worse, you know?
Oh, it really adds to the humiliation of it.
Yeah.
Like, they're just like discarding this woman, you know, like, she's just a piece of trash, you know what I mean?
And the guy
like,
that's gobbling cheese balls like it's, you know, like he's watching a movie. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That guy's my friend Adam, who's been in every single movie I've ever made since we were like 17.
Right. Oh, cool.
Yeah, he did. He used to be really, really quiet, and he always just like he played the Metal Maniac, and then he played the Metal Maniac in like the 3 renditions we tried, and he always just kind of grunted and didn't say words.
Right.
And he improvised all of his weirdo lines and jokes, and I'm just like, yeah, just go. You're way funnier than me. You know, do it up.
How did he feel though about playing like such a sleazy character?
Oh, Adam doesn't care.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He was the only one. He and Tim Ritter were the only ones that were like, yeah, use my real name. Everyone else was like, do not put my name on this.
Really?
Yeah, most of the, and Carly Stonefeld, who was the one, like, I guess, trained actress that I used. Everyone else was fake names, which is, I don't think the movie's that bad. It's not.
No, not at all. It's all clearly staged, you know, and as you said, it's like a story that's been done so many times.
And also, if you actually take the time to watch the whole thing, it is kind of a feminist film. I don't know if that was like my intention, but it definitely accidentally happened, you know?
Yeah. How, like, do you mind elaborating on that? Like, what do you think kind of makes it a feminist film?
So one thing, and Tim pointed it out to me, was like, your big trope in slasher films is the girl's always running away, and somehow she always loses her shirt, and somehow she always has massive tits. And in this one, all the guys that get killed have giant boners. And I tried to write it in so there's like a reason, you know, like the one guy's watching porn, the other guy's peeing, so I don't know why that one. Yeah, he's just like, all right, he's got a boner or whatever, you know. The other guy's reading Conan, so like, you know, kind of. I thought that kind of playing with that.
Yeah.
And then without giving anything away, like, you know, one of the character arcs, I think, makes it a little bit more like, oh, okay, they were doing something different here.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I think I was asking you just kind of to hear like your kind of thoughts on it, because I would agree, like I don't want to spoil the ending, but the ending was just sort of like, oh, okay. The only other time I feel like I've seen something kind of on par with that is like, do you know Base Moi?
I have no idea what you're saying. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's a French, I don't know if I even want to call it a rape revenge film, but it's probably good to go into it knowing that it's a rape revenge film.
Okay.
And it's based on a book written by a French woman who is like a hardcore feminist. But it's worth seeing. The only thing that's like, you know, you got to kind of steel yourself for is that the rape scene in the beginning of the film is all unsimulated.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's just, so it's really shocking. But then everything that happens after that is where you see kind of more of like this feminist deviation from the norm.
No, that sounds awesome. And like, you know, I watch enough roughies that I'm not like, oh my God, real sex. Oh no, you know?
Right. So it seems like, you know, based on a lot of the influences that you told me that you have, like Jack Hill and Russ Meyer, and like being so into SOV stuff, like a lot of your influences seem to be like, you know, further in the past. Is there anything more contemporary, like more current that you're influenced by that maybe people would be surprised by?
I don't think so.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I don't particularly like modern stuff. In fact, it became like a joke with the cast shooting the Emasculator, because if someone wore a certain thing or said a certain thing, I would, without being aware, say, no, too modern.
Really?
It got to the point where everyone was just shouting that at me. In fact, if you look at all of the Playboy or the Penthouse posters that we put up in Billy's room for that scene, Tim wrote too modern on one of them. You know, I noticed while we were shooting and made me laugh. Like, I don't like modern stuff. I don't know.
This is kind of a weird question, but do you think that there's like a line, like a year when, you know, after that year's when films kind of changed for you?
For whatever reason, and I cannot give you like a good explanation for it, 1987 feels like...
Oh, wow.
Dude, I have no idea why, but like I know Hellraiser was 88 or 89, and I like it, but it does have a different feel to it. Like, that would be the movie that I would put at the stuff starts to feel like I don't like it quite as much.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's not to say I don't like some 90s movies. Like, Quentin Tarantino's the reason I started making movies, but definitely like 70s, 80s, and like real film is what, and real old film. They shoot stuff on film now, and I don't even think it looks that much like film because of whatever the modern process is. Like, I didn't get excited when Hateful Eight was shot in 70 millimeter because it doesn't look all that different from like well-graded digital to me.
Fair enough. Yeah. I guess that is true. Like, it does seem like everything coming out now all has a very similar like digital sheen to it.
It does.
You do watch like newer films for the most part. You just generally aren't inspired by them.
Yeah, I didn't love, but I liked Late Night with the Devil. I loved all the cool TV stuff. I thought that was graded really well. I liked that look.
Okay.
What else? Tim watches new stuff, so sometimes he'll talk me into watching something more modern. We watched The Substance. That was okay.
Really? Oh, okay.
It was a little too heavy-handed on the satire. And the way the camera worked was a little too student. And I'm not saying this like, dude, she's a way better director than me. I'm not saying that I think she's not good. But for my personal taste, like all the close-ups and stuff were really heavy-handed and just not my thing. And I say that as someone who absolutely, like the one I'm thinking is when the producer's like chewing on something and his teeth are all gross. Yeah. I do the same thing in the Emasculator while he's chewing cheese balls. So I'm like being a total hypocrite. But yeah, for some reason, The Substance just, and I didn't think the storyline made all that much sense either. And I thought that she looked like the Toxic Avenger at the end, and it wasn't gross and scary. It wasn't wet enough, you know?
Wow. You might be the only person with that hot take. Well, I mean, most people I know either love the ending or say it was too much, but you're kind of saying it wasn't enough, right?
I loved all the blood, because Tim's like, oh man, she's beating you. She's beating your blood cannon. And I told him to shut up. But
that's hilarious.
I guess as a woman who also doesn't like how I look all the time, like I should have watched this and felt something, you know? And I didn't feel a thing. I didn't relate to anybody. Also, nobody is better looking than Demi Moore, so that was kind of like a, what point are you trying to make here? Because she's gorgeous, and this other woman is very modern and generic and boring looking, so I don't...
Right.
Like, the point I thought was kind of lost there, you know?
Okay, that's fair. But have you seen Coralie Farget's, like, earlier film, Revenge?
Yes, I liked Revenge.
Okay, cool.
It reminded me a lot of Fair Game, and I didn't see her name drop that in any interviews.
I don't know that one.
Oh, that's a cool... I don't think they actually rape her in it, but it's a woman, and it's an Australian film, I want to say. Okay. And she lives at like a nature reserve, and she's got like a cool truck, and she's got a cool dog, and she's got all these animals. And these three asshole beer guzzling hunters with a giant truck torment her for whatever reason, and it starts with like messing with her car while she's driving and messing with her stuff. She sleeps naked because it's like Australia and hot, and she wakes up and finds like a Polaroid of her that they left. And it's definitely that kind of like pushing harder and harder and harder until it leads to like a huge climax, huge build up, huge confrontation. And like Revenge was asshole, bro-y, like Trumpy kind of guys that were macho, and then it was this big kind of showdown in the similar landscape. So to me, I'm like, yeah, she totally saw Fair Game. And then the big...
Most likely.
She just kept talking about Mad Max, and I'm like, what? Definitely it felt very much like Fair Game to me, but...
Maybe she hadn't seen Fair Game.
You can't make a rape revenge film and not see Fair Game. Okay. It's cool. I recommend it. It's very cool.
What you described sounded amazing, because sometimes I almost like this sounds so bad, but like sometimes I just like the build up more than the actual like act.
Oh no, and this is the one that by the time it's that final confrontation, you just want her to kill these dudes so hard because they're
sweet.
Not to get political, but if like Donald Trump had existed in the 80s in Australia, these guys would have that big dumb like Donald Trump flag hanging off of their truck. That is just the type of characters that they are.
Well, you're welcome to get political.
I'm not a political person, but that is
that's like fair.
That is just the best current analogy I can think of for like what kind of characters they are. But yeah, it's a great movie.
Yeah, I definitely need to see that. What you're describing in terms of it being less about like a harsh rape scene and more of like this buildup of them harassing her reminds me of Naked Vengeance. Have you seen that one? I haven't
seen that one in forever.
Okay.
I remember it's ridiculous because the opening scene, from what I remember, is the husband gets killed and she gets raped, and then she goes home to visit her family and then gets raped again. From what I remember, like in a grocery store or something. I haven't seen it in years and years and years. Or no, they break into her house. They break into the parents' house after they leave.
And I think they kill her parents. But it's that, time leading up to that happening where every single guy in this town is a piece of shit. And you're just like, oh God, like they don't even need to do any more to her. And I want her to kill them,
Yeah, fair game. Definitely the second you meet these men, you're like, no, they gotta go.
They gotta go.
Yeah, they gotta go.
That's awesome. But it's cool that you mentioned like, oh, it's a similar kind of thing to Trump, like I feel like right now what's going on politically, it's, I know you say you're not a political person, but it's probably hard not to channel some of your frustrations to what's going on into a film,
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel like by making the Emasculator then that like there was that catharsis for you of, dealing with like the frustrations that we're going through right now?
I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah, the Emasculator was surprisingly not like a very personal film.
Okay.
Which is funny because I broke up with my ex right as I was making that, so I could see where people are like, oh, she broke up with her ex and now she's making this movie about cutting off dicks. But no, what happened was I was finishing up getting my vet tech license and I had to do a large animal class. Okay. And the woman brings out an Emasculator, which I have it. So she brings this thing out. It's an Emasculator. And she's just going on about how you put it around the testicles and you clamp it and you cut it. Basically, it crimps the spermatic cord. And as long as you cut below where it's crimped, they don't bleed. But yeah, and then she's going on about how if you cut the wrong side, they can bleed out. Or you can cut too high and all of their guts can spill out, especially if they already have like a pre-existing hernia or something.
Yeah.
So she said all of that, and the rest of the lecture was lost on me because the Emasculator like started just because we knew the guy that plays the dad, Brad G. Grinter, which is not his name.
Okay.
We knew we wanted to do like a dad-based rape revenge, and we just didn't know what to do to like make it at least somewhat different. And then that just was like, yep, 100%. That is, I mean, it. Even as a girl, it sounds the description is painful,
Oh,
like
it's brutal.
Yeah. So that was the big inspiration was just being in tech school. And then one of the doctors I work with had a farm and was like, yeah, you can bloody it up. Go ahead. And
sweet.
Yeah.
I was actually wondering if that was real because it sounded so brutal.
And we take a lot of liberties.
Sure.
Like sometimes they don't even cut. Sometimes it's just like, okay, we crimp the spermatic cord. They can't do anything. So definitely some liberties were taken.
Yeah,
obviously like penises aren't getting cut off. It's just, but
yeah,
just, we Hollywoodized it a bit.
Yeah. It's movie magic.
Yeah. Movie magic.
Why did you want to make it like a dad-based revenge film?
I think because David is the guy that, played the dad. He acted under Brad G. Grinter, but he's a dad. And like, we were just like,
okay,
this could be a lot of inspiration for you to work with because he's a dad. He has a daughter. He's a productive dude. He loves his kids. And yeah, I guess that was just the story we had in our heads for whatever reason, but mostly that, he's not a real actor, but it's kind of something to work with.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So it's like you had the Emasculator and you had this guy who was a dad and you thought like, how do I make a story out of this instead of,
and again, it's nothing new. Like Hardcore is kind of that plot.
Oh, true. Yeah. I love that movie.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are others, but Hardcore is the first one that comes to mind.
Yeah, I wonder what the first rape revenge film would be.
Would it be Spit? No, Virgin Spring. It would have to be. It would have to be Virgin Spring, right?
Oh yeah.
I
Well,
can't think of.
no. How old is the? I feel like the Virgin Spring's
Spring
not
pretty.
that. Oh, actually, it's 1960.
Okay, yeah.
But I still think there's one before that.
There's gotta be.
Yeah. Well, when did the Roughies start?
That was like a 70s thing.
Really? Are you sure?
Yeah, because Water Power is 76. Forced Entry is...
Okay.
Off the top of my head, Forced Entry was like 74. Yeah, it was, because Forced Entry came before Taxi Driver, and it was really the first movie to like discuss post-Vietnam PTSD. It was definitely the first like deranged veteran movie, which is nuts because like, you know, nobody really knows about Forced Entry.
I've heard of it.
Oh man, speaking of like unstimulated rape scenes, holy cow.
Oh shit.
That one's, I think it's really good and I really like watching it, but it's not for everybody, I don't think.
Prep yourself.
In fact, Harry Reams played the deranged Vietnam veteran that's a gas station attendant that's like following women home. I'm not great at porn actresses, so I can't remember who the scene was with. But the scene was so intense that it like shattered his real life relationship with this actress. And it's tough. Yeah, it's a rough scene to watch.
That's upsetting.
Yeah, but it's...
I don't like that.
No, it's kind of a... I mean, I think, I want to say Sean Costello shot that over 3 days. And it's an incredibly effective movie. It's really good.
Yeah.
So when you look at it in that frame of mind, you're like, oh my God, you shot this in 3 days for like no money. And it's a phenomenal story.
But it's, sorry, you're saying that it includes unsimulated...
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a porno.
Right,
I mean, it's weird to call it a porno because it should not be erotic. Like it's not a single. I think there's one non-rape sex scene, and I think it's Sean Costello himself in it. But yeah, and there's like Vietnam flashbacks and stuff. Like I definitely ripped that idea for the Emasculator, where there's just stock Vietnam footage in it as he's walking through New York City, and he's like Vietnam is cutting into his head. It's really good.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
So Forced Entry and Water Power. Should I just watch them back to back?
That might be a lot if that's not your thing. I watch them back to back, but I'm kind of... Water Power is kind of humorous. Like it's not... And Sean Costello said so too. Like it's not just me being weird. Like it's one of Jamie Gillis's best performances of all time. And there's definitely a comedic aspect. So I would say watch that and see how you do. Okay. And if you like it and you're like, okay, I like this Sean Costello guy, then try Forced Entry.
Okay. Sean Costello, was he only really doing like really rough porn?
I think he did like some normal ones too, but definitely his roughies are what I'm drawn towards, and those are his two best. He made like a gazillion movies. I haven't even... He made a movie called The Passions of Carol, which is a like a Christmas Carol, Christmas porno.
I wasn't expecting you to say that.
No, I just Melusine just put that one out, so I just got the Blu-ray.
Oh, sick!
I'm excited to check that one out. Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, he had some higher budgeted ones that looked like the guy had a camera eye. He was incredible.
Really? Okay, because that's one thing about American like classic porn that's kind of kept me from getting into it, is that I find most of the time it's like maybe not cinematic enough for me.
Oh, buddy, there's a lot of really cinematic stuff.
Oh,
I mean, it is the most cliched. Like everyone said, it's the greatest porno ever made. But Radley Metzger's The Opening of Misty Beethoven is beautiful.
Okay,
it is a gorgeous film. Yeah, it was shot in like 3 different countries. It's cinematic as hell. The sets are beautiful. The countries are beautiful. The cinematography is beautiful.
Yeah. Are you familiar at all with like Japanese pink films?
Very, very, very little. Like,
okay.
I've seen a couple of like the female Scorpion movies. I've seen the one with Christina Lindbergh. I saw the Nunsploitation one, but like tiptoed, you know?
Okay.
And I like what I've seen.
Yeah. It's all very artistic and
I love how they're
cinematic.
shot,
Yeah. And I think that's like every time I've watched something like that from Japan and the little I've seen of American stuff, and the American stuff I've really seen has been like the Findleys, you know, like
Yeah, and I love
Woman's
them.
Torment. I figured you would be into them. Yeah, it's fine. Like I'm not crazy about it, but you know.
Yeah, camera comes first for me, and composition
Okay.
and good cuts come first. So like, I love Roberta Findlay's style, and the fact that she was in school to be a fucking concert pianist, and
Really?
then met Michael Findlay. Yeah, so
Yeah,
they
yeah.
met, and I am paraphrasing the Rialto report, but they met because Michael Findlay needed someone to accompany movies that he was playing on piano. And so they met that way, and they were both just social fucking weirdos, and somehow kind of came to depend on each other and have this weird social anxiety dependence. And then Roberta started just shooting his movies for him. For him and John Amaro. Yeah.
Right.
I tried to get Roberta Findlay to do an audio cameo in The Emasculator, and she kind of hates women. She says that herself.
I've heard that before, yeah.
Yeah, on the Rialto report, she's just like, women, children, they're not my people. I love her.
That's awesome.
But yeah, she said no, and I'm like, okay, I kind of figured you would.
Yeah.
But,
well, good on you for trying. That's a really cool cameo to get.
Yeah, and she did kind of, when I emailed her, we very briefly exchanged emails before she was like, get out of here. And she did tell me kind of that she did some camera work on the Flesh trilogy, because she has... in the past just completely denied it, but I'm like, dude, this is your camera work. I know your camera work. And she just said something like, perhaps. I'm like, okay.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
and she definitely did it. Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh, you can tell.
Yeah.
Like, it's just her style from like the later Findlay stuff.
I've only seen, I think, a couple of the Flesh films.
They're all three good.
Okay.
Yeah, the middle one, there's like a machete fight in the back of a truck, and they just...
Right, I've seen that one.
And they just shot it, yeah. There's a lot of filler, and they're like, clearly they were just like, okay, let's shoot this woman dancing at a million angles for 20 minutes and put a song behind it, but still, they're really well shot, and I'm a sucker for high contrast black and white, you know, it's just, everything looks good, so... And again, they were shot in like no time at all for no money, and they look so much better than anything I could do. I'm like, my God, you know?
That is something that makes me think of like the Japanese pink films, because a lot of times it was the same deal of, you know, very little money, shot in very little time, and just amazing results. So yeah, I love that kind of thing.
And now I feel like people shoot stuff for not a lot of money, not a lot of time, but it just doesn't look great. You're not seeing that effort. You know, you're getting like big wide shot, very little lighting, and just people fooling around. And it's like, you shouldn't half-ass it just because it's digital and it's easy. You know, like back when John Amaro and Michael Findlay started, they had some old ass camera that could only shoot like 3 minutes at a time, and they had to sneak it into a dancing place and cut a hole in a bag and like rewind it every 3 minutes or whatever it was. Like it was running and gunning and fast, but you had to have some skill. You didn't have a viewfinder that told you were, or hell, you didn't have automatic exposure, you know?
Right.
Like you had to have a light meter. You had to know where to put your focus. You had to know, you had to be a craftsman. You had to know what you were doing. Yeah. And so I think for me, that's the difference between like all these like Amityville, Shark, whatever title exploitation movies that are shot in a weekend that just don't, and people love them and that's great, but they just don't do it for me versus like a Findlay Amaro picture or a Sean Costello picture where you're like, this was shot in 3 days and it looks incredible. Yeah. Or hell, even Phil Prince would shoot stuff over a weekend and it looked phenomenal.
What did he do? He sounds really familiar.
He did a bunch of roughies too.
Okay.
My favorite's probably the Taming of Rebecca.
Okay, I've heard of it. What was that?
Yeah, it's Sharon Mitchell. My dog shaking and hitting my face.
Okay. But yeah, you were mentioning Roberta Findlay, trying to get her in on a cameo, and that just made me think about how you got to work with Tim Ritter on The Emasculator. Was that your first time doing something with him?
No, No, Tim's my boyfriend, so like we just
I didn't know that.
Together.
Okay,
nobody really knows that. So big split your head reveal.
Whoa!
But that kind of happened. That kind of happened while we were shooting the Emasculator. Like we did Twisted Illusions 3 together, and he was my analog advisor on Zodiac. And we were just friends. And then while we were shooting Emasculator, we were like, "Oh, okay, this is a thing." So yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
Yeah, I know there's an age gap, so I don't know if people like.
Well, I mean,
I don't care.
Whatever.
It's my favorite director. I don't care.
Yeah. I mean, you're not like 18 years old, are you?
No, I'm 35. I'm old as hell.
Okay,
so
then who gives a shit? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I don't. That's totally fine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I just tell people he's my partner, and I just let them guess.
Right.
Just keep it vague.
Maybe I did see somewhere partner, and then I kind of just assumed it was like a filmmaking partner.
And we're that too. We're like all the things. But yeah, we work really well together. We both have weird brains that just kind of like get each other. We both have sticky brains, so.
Yeah, well, don't end up like the Finleys, so.
No, God, no.
Yeah.
We've joked about that because we have similar neuroses, you know?
Okay.
And so he's absolutely been like, "Don't Roberta me," and I said, "Don't get decapitated by helicopter."
Oh, right.
We've absolutely made that joke. It's funny.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, but this was the first time you worked with him, right? The Emasculator?
He was. The story, and I'll let people decide if it's true or false, is that we met before I made Zodiac at a showing of Water Power. And we're at this movie theater, and we're in like the middle row, and there's just 3 people there. I'm on one end, Tim's way at the other, and there's some guy in the middle with like a long trench coat type deal. And the guy in the middle is getting busy, you know. And I look over and I see Tim. And I said, "Hey, aren't you Tim Ritter?" And he says, "Yeah, I am." And I said, "I love your movies." And then we just kind of started talking and found that we had a bunch of stuff alike. And then the guy in the middle throws his hands in the air and says, "Nobody can get off to you geeks," and storms out of the theater. And then we watched the rest of Water Power together and became friends, and then started making movies, and then so on and so forth. I'll let people decide if they believe that story. But that's the story we decided that we like for our origin story.
Oh, okay, so it didn't happen.
Oh, no, it totally happened.
Okay.
It is a much better origin story than I reached out to buy VHS tapes, you know?
Right.
So that's the one we go with.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what, So at some point you bought VHS tapes?
Yes, at some point also I bought VHS tapes and then was like, "Can you help me with Night of the Zodiac?" And he said yes.
Right.
Yeah. But one of those stories is better than the other.
Can I ask an annoying like YouTube podcast host question?
Sure.
Is Tim Ritter friends with Elijah Wood, and have you met Elijah Wood?
No, not at all. And he's always like, "Man, it'd be really cool if that guy could like fund one of my movies," but nope, not at all.
Yeah, that's kind of weird because he's
always
known
like
for...
truth or daring all over the place, and nope.
Really? Has he tried to reach out to him at all?
I don't know. Maybe way, way, way back when that first interview came out, but I don't think there was any response or anything came of it. Because S. Craig Zoller has also name dropped Tim as like, "This is a filmmaker I really like," but nothing has come of that either.
Oh, that's too
so
bad.
I guess I'm lucky that I was kind of in that same position where he was a filmmaker I really liked, and I reached out, and obviously it went like above and beyond that. But
I'll say
I don't really want Tim to like date Elijah Wood or S. Craig Zoller, but you know.
But what if it got his films funded? I mean, you know.
Maybe we could make an exception.
Okay,
it's 2025 after all, you know.
Yeah.
Just have at it. I'm joking, Tim. Don't do that.
Right. No, he won't.
Yeah.
He won't.
No, he won't. No, we're pretty tight.
But that must be amazing for you. That like, I'm guessing you saw Truth or Dare when you were growing up or something. Is that
probably in my 20s.
I watched it probably in my 20s as well. But that fucking video cover. Well, like it was at every video store I went to, and I remember just being like, "What is this?" But I never rented it, and I kind of regret that.
Yeah, I think I just got the SRS DVD because it sounded cool. Like it.
Really?
I don't have I didn't get the VHS until way later. But I liked that and Killing Spree, and then also Twisted Illusions. That was the one that like I was like, man, this guy really feels the same way. You can see it when you watch it. Like, this guy really feels the same way about making movies that I can. Something about the energy in that movie, without knowing Tim, I could tell that he had my same, like, you make movies because you have to.
Yeah.
Not because I feel like there are people that want to be known as filmmakers and make movies because they want to be a filmmaker. And there are people that just, I call it brain dystocia, where you like get an idea in your head and it has to be born. Otherwise your brain will rot and ooze out of your ears and you'll die. So I think Tim and I are in that camp of like, we have to be creative and make movies to be happy. You know?
Right.
And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the other. I mean, I think most Hollywood directors that are actually successful are like, yeah, I want to be a filmmaker, and then they succeed. And I think probably, if anything, being a fan that makes movies because you have to is debilitating and makes your end product maybe not as good because you're making the movie you want to see. You don't give a shit about what anybody else wants to see or what people think of your camera or lighting choices, you know? So I'm not saying there's, you know, one is better than the other, but being with somebody that like gets that, I think, is how it has to be for a relationship to work. You know, like, you have to create, and you totally get that that's gonna come first.
It sounds like you're describing like one scenario that has ego and one scenario that doesn't, or the ego isn't a priority. No,
it's just like you just have to do it. One time at work, a client, I have a little camera necklace. And a client at work was like, are you a director? And it took me a solid 20 seconds to be like, oh yeah, yes, I am. Because I just don't, it's just something I do. I don't think of myself as like a filmmaker. It just is. I don't know. Like, I just make movies.
I just find telling people at work, if you don't have a job that's, you know, connected to your artistic output, that it's always kind of uncomfortable, because then, like, do you tell them to see your films or do you tell them not to see your films? You know what I mean? Like,
and I think it's because I work. I'm going to tell you about how everyone at work found out about the Emasculator.
Oh,
because it's a really good story. Yes. So the overnighters that I work with, they all know. The guy that plays the sheriff he's one of my best friends, but he's also the overnight doctor. One of the houses we shot at was one of the doctors. The farm we shot at was, so like, people at my work knew, but it was mostly the overnighters. We reshot the dick scenes like 3 or 4 times because I just couldn't get it right. At first we used like the hard rubber silicone dicks and it just didn't work. So finally we moved on to the sleeves. And this was like, everything was edited. I just needed to shoot these to cut in. And I reshot everything. I loaded everything in the house the next day. And I went off to do something else. My dogs are 10 years old. I have left their food bin open and they haven't gotten into it. I have left cookies on the table. They haven't gotten into them.
Wow.
I go back into like this little office area where the props are, and all of the penises are gone. Like 11 penises are gone. And then I look on the carpet and there's like chewed up penis bits and bits of fake blood. And I say, oh, fuck. And it was like 1 PM. So I call work and I'm like, hey, is it busy right now? And they're like, no. And thankfully, one of the girls that answered was a second shifter that knows what I do. And so I said, good, because I think my dogs just ate like 11 fake penises. And she says, great, come in. But like, the first shift team that has no idea who I am or what I do, they know who I am, but they don't know what I do. They don't even know I make movies. Is in. And so the first step, most of the time when a dog eats something they shouldn't, is to induce vomiting. And so I bring both of my dogs in, and they're like not great at the vet. And we induce vomiting, and sure enough, Masher barfs out like 2 very realistic looking dicks. And the only saving grace, because I had to make both of them barf, was that Masher, everyone freaked out because I'm going to brag about one thing. I make really, really good fake blood. I actually brought blood home from work and like messed with my mix to get the dark and the brown just right.
Awesome.
And so anyways, Masher vomits and it looks like blood, and everyone's like, oh, holy shit. He's got like, nope. It was just, the dicks were covered in blood. And then Quang is the other dog. His barf just looks like barf. So we at least knew that just one dog ate the penises.
Yeah.
And then the surgery team is already there, and we're like, well, let's just do x-rays.
Yeah.
And so we do x-rays on Masher, and the head of the entire hospital, the doc, I mean, I've known her forever, so it's not a big deal, but she's like the medical director, head criticalist, very serious woman, comes into x-ray, and she looks at and she goes, that's a penis, that's a penis, that's a penis, that's a penis. And yeah. And then she's just like, can I ask why you have all of these? And then I started to explain it. And she's a very intelligent woman that has no time for my shenanigans, so she just kind of walked away. And then Masher stayed for surgery. And our surgery team, who also doesn't know I make movies, pulled like 9 penises out of his stomach.
Right.
He's fine now.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah.
I wonder if like just showing them a trailer could maybe explain. Like, I made this movie, you know, that's all you have to show them.
Well, luckily, one of the girls in surgery, the girl who gets her heart ripped out and thrown into a basketball hoop in Night of the Zodiac is on the surgery team.
Oh, cool.
So luckily, she was like, oh, I made a movie with Susana, and probably this is just movie stuff. So there was at least one head honcho in the surgery department that was like, she's not just some perv with like 11, but which would be fine, you know, if someone wants to have 11 penises, you know. Go for it. Sometimes maybe like one for every day of the week, and then I don't know. But yeah, it was. I still, anytime they hire anybody new at work, it eventually comes out where they're like, "Oh, you're the penis person." And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, that's me." But yeah, he's fine now, and luckily we get a hefty surgery discount at my work. So
yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah.
The only thing I can think of is I watch a lot of adult films, and I just like watch them on the couch with my dogs. And so like maybe he sees those and is like, oh yeah, you eat those? I have no idea, because he doesn't get into stuff. They both do not. You know, usually you have the dogs that habitually eat things they shouldn't and come in for foreign body surgeries every couple of years. And you're like, oh yeah, you're back. What? No, but they're 10 years old and they've never eaten anything. So
yeah,
I don't know why those were the things and that was the day, but
well, you said they were covered in fake blood, right?
Yeah, but my fake blood doesn't have any kind of sweeteners or anything. It is not tasty. I mean, I have one of my recipes is tasty, but this one is not. So I have no idea why he felt that was the thing.
But I feel like there's an idea for a movie there.
Maybe.
I don't know. Just because you mentioned earlier, like the Emasculator, seeing it in your lecture, you know, like, can you turn this into a movie somehow?
Maybe the crazy dick-eating dog. I mean, that'd be terrifying. I mean, they did have all like those Doberman and Rottweiler movies in like the 70s and 80s, and here's this weird little houndy mutt that just maybe his master got raped and he just eats dicks. I don't know.
We're kind of cooking with something here, because like you just did a rape revenge film with the dad.
Yeah, so now it's the dog.
Yeah, rape revenge film with the dog. I'm not even joking. Like, I would watch the shit out of that. That sounds sick.
Maybe sometime down the line. You never know.
Yeah, how would you direct a dog?
I don't think any actor would let a dog anywhere near that particular region.
Well, I think it's pretty funny when like the puppet hands swap in, you know? Yeah. So the dog like jumps, and then you kind of have like a cut to like the dog pause.
Yeah, and also like, who's going to do that part? I don't want to do that part. You know, who's going to be the puppet hand? Nobody wants to be the puppet hand. That could get weird.
Okay. Is it because of like the touching of the actors?
Yeah, what actor wants like, and I say that as like, you know, having just made the Emasculator, where I got entirely too up close and personal with my guy friends, but yeah, I don't know. Okay.
You care to spill the beans on that, or is that like
that was about it. Like, it was just like getting real up there with guys that are just my friends. Like, I had to put, you know, Jesse in a hot tub, and I'm just like, okay, you're half naked in a hot tub, let's clomp down. Or when I did the Jamie Gillis backyard scene, and my buddy Michael is just like in his whitey tighties in the backyard, like, hey man, we used to play D&D together, and now you're in your whitey tighties. This is great.
But that's the only way to portray men getting their
right.
comeuppance,
I mean, there was really
Yeah.
no other.
It's the sacrifices you have to make.
Yeah, I
you know?
will say the one time where it wasn't my idea, and I was glad that Tim was there, was Billy's scene where the penis looked so real. Tim was like, "Hey, why don't you pretend to jerk off?" Because Adam's like my brother. I don't really want to tell him to do that. You know, we've known each other since we were kids. That's a little bit too close for comfort there. So I was glad Tim was there to have the idea, because it's a great idea and it kind of looks real.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was real for a second. Was like, whoa, this movie is so gross.
Yeah, and that was the funny thing, because we used like, you know, larger props. A couple of the guys were like, "Man, I gotta show a girl this." You know.
Oh, this is great, honey. You filmed yourself raping a woman, you know, like
but look at that thing, you know.
Really in the mood right now. Thanks.
Like, yeah, you know, maybe. Hey, it's a feminist film. They should be impressed.
That's true. That's true. Film. Could you see yourself like making a film with like more women in the cast to like switch things up?
Probably not, because most of my friends are guys.
Oh, okay.
And I just kind of cast who I know and who I would, you know, hang out with. So that's really, which is tricky, because I need probably a female star for the next movie, and I'm like, yeah, not sure.
Where is she? Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, that's just because I only use friends. To me, using just like an actor that you don't know, because for me, making movies is really fun. I don't know if I like that. And I know that's how real directors do it, but not really. You know, I see myself as a hobbyist, so I want to do stuff with friends.
I mean, if you are looking, you know, like maybe going to like a university or college or something that has like a acting field or whatever, you know, you can try that, because people in those situations are like, you know, willing to do free work and like pretty hungry for it.
Yeah, and Carly did really well in the Emasculator. She's just like a state away, and so it's a lot to, you know, get her over here. And she's a little young. My next movie is called The Step Kid, and it's about a kid who was really tight with their dad, and the dad dies of cancer. And I don't know if you've ever seen the radiation masks for cancer treatment. They're terrifying looking. And so the kid is having all of these nightmares of their dad and like this radiation mask with all these tubes hanging out of his arm. And she is, I don't know if it's a girl or boy yet. They are, you know, just traumatized by watching their dad die. And so the kid is kind of dealing with their trauma by making movies, working on Halloween stuff, and just having these insane, terrible nightmares. And the mom is dealing with her trauma by bringing men home. And the kid, kind of paired with the nightmares, peeks at the mom doing like weird S&M stuff with a guy, and one thing leads to another, and she starts killing the men that the mom brings home. The mom thinks that these men are leaving her, so her self-esteem gets worse and worse and worse, and she brings home scummier and scummier men, and things just spiral out of control. So like, I need a little bit of an older actress, and that's gonna, you know, I'm gonna need. That's a big ask for both of those roles. So I'm a little nervous about casting. The boyfriends are easy, because I'll just, you know, have, you know, all my guy friends, hey, what kind of scumbag do you want to play? Okay, let's kill you, you know?
Yeah.
Those two roles are going to be, and Tim has contacts since he's more of like the real filmmaker, so we'll figure it out.
I'm really intrigued by this whole idea of like you know, she's getting into like S&M and it's going like darker and darker. Do you have like, what are your ideas right now about that? Like,
it's pretty much just a seed of an idea. You know, we started on the outline, and I was just thinking like a Looking for Mr. Goodbar type thing.
Oh, you know, yeah, that does sound.
And
like
I need to rewatch it a few times, and I need to read the book to get more ideas. But I guess the theme of like how different people deal with mourning and grief and stuff, and two people dealing with the same grief in totally different ways that just absolutely clash with each other, instead of like talking to each other and getting through it together, is interesting.
True.
And of course it'll be an SOV film, so it's not like it's gonna, you know, that depth is never going to turn out in the final, kind of like the Emasculator. Like, it's this weird Jack Hill balance of like, sure, there's meaning there, but it's also a fun, goofy B movie.
Okay. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just kind of how I think that's how it has to be. I'm not a real director. My friends aren't real actors, and we've got like a couple $1,000s and old cameras to work with. So it's just kind of the reality too.
Yeah, yeah. But do you think that you'll always stick with video cameras?
Um, I just don't like how digital looks too much. I think
Okay.
Tim likes digital still, so I'll shoot his stuff on digital for him, but stuff that I'm directing, I don't really. And I mean, I go pretty modern. Like my
Hmm.
mini DV cams are like late 90s or even early 2000s, and I like that
Okay.
look, especially when you run
Yeah.
it back on tape and it softens it all the more. But beyond
Right.
that,
Yeah.
it just doesn't do anything for me. It's just too sharp, too true to life. I don't want to
Right.
watch movies to watch real life.
Ah, okay. So it's sort of like a distortion of reality in a way, like you're trying to make it look as unrealistic as possible.
Yeah, and it's funny because Chaz Balin used to say, I think Chaz Balin used to say that he
Hmm.
didn't like shot on video because it looks like a soap opera. And now I feel like the new version of that
Ah.
is, I don't like digital because it looks like a reality TV show.
Hmm.
It just carries this atmosphere with it that makes it feel
Yeah.
less like a movie.
I think for me, I don't like when things start to all look the same and it's like this homogenized look. I mean, like a lot of
Yeah,
Netflix content is kind of like that, where
yeah,
everything's so poorly lit and just has this real digital sheen to it.
yep.
So it does make SOV stand out more. Do you think for someone getting into your work now that they should have prior experience with SOV, like in order to really get the feel
I
for it? Or
think I think Night of the Zodiac's a really good intro. Like
I would agree. Yeah.
you should be able to watch that and be like, oh, the Polonia brothers, who's that? Oh my God, look at that clip from Splatter Farm. That sounds awesome. Oh, Tim Ritter,
Yeah.
who's that? Oh, Donald Farmer, who's that? Like basically that giant, what is like a 13 kill montage or whatever it is.
Hmm.
I mean, and they're not all SOV, some of it's direct to video, but that basically is like a greatest hits of like, watch these movies and you're going to have a pretty good idea of whether you like this or not.
Yeah. Well, when you were saying that the Emasculator wasn't really a personal film for you, it actually made me think that like the Night of the Zodiac probably is the personal, more the personal of the two.
Yeah, because so when I shot Metal Maniac in 2012, I shot that on the Canon XL2, which is still pretty damn close to my favorite camera of all time.
Oh, really?
And that was when HD was coming in, and everybody
Mm.
gave me hell for shooting tape, for shooting mini DV.
Okay.
And I was like, no, this is what I like. It looks soft. The color is nice. This is an amazing running gun camera. It still is.
Yeah.
And then DSLR started coming in, and I'm like,
Oh,
okay, this is full frame. I can get my depth of field super shallow and make it look like a film.
Hmm.
And I kind of got lost in that for like nearly a decade. And everything I made, I just hated how it looked. It had like a snobby feel, and I was directing snobby. Like the Step
Okay.
Kid, we tried to shoot it before, and we tried to shoot with a DSLR. And again, it was just people we knew as actors. And I had a light meter, and I was measuring for focus and doing all of this unnecessary shit that was just terrifying my actors. And so then all of a sudden, I watch Shrek, not the ogre one, but the shot on video kids resurrecting a dead Nazi one.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
And I'm like, holy fuck, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And then that started the Splatter Farm and all that stuff. And I realized like these look way better than anything I've made, but they have a certain energy.
Sure,
and so I got
sure.
Panasonic AG-188 was my first like VHS camera.
Okay.
And I started shooting an anthology, and all of a sudden, like, the whole process changed. And sure, like, I still try to shoot well. I still try to get good shots in light, but like,
Hmm.
my friends were loosening up and improvising, and I wasn't taking myself seriously because I just have this plastic camcorder on my shoulder,
Yeah.
And it felt like making Metal Maniac again, where I was just having fun with friends.
Right.
And all that snobbery trying to be Brian De Palma bullshit was like so far out the window. I can be John McBride. I can maybe be Tim Ritter, but I can't be John Carpenter. Okay. He had like a crew of 100 people.
Right. Okay.
He had a gazillion dollar Steadicam and an amazing Steadicam. I can't do that, but I can absolutely get like a JVC GYX2 and be Tim Ritter.
Right.
And so the energy changed a lot. And I guess Night of the Zodiac is me finding that. And I was a little bit of a latecomer to the SOVs, I was probably in my late 20s, but
oh, really? Huh.
it just changed like the way I made movies and the way I watched movies. And to me, a good SOV movie is very similar to like Italian Neo-Realism, if you think about it. Because when you watch Italian... No, hear me out.
No. I'm not disagreeing. I just want you to start again because that was like the coolest thing I've ever heard.
So like when you think about Italian Neo-Realism, what's so special about it is that it captures a certain period in time. There aren't sets. When you're watching Rome Open City, you're seeing the absolute fucking shambles of Italy. There are not a lot of real actors. You're seeing people that experienced World War II and experienced the terror and the grief and everything terrible. Like when that chick gets shot down in the middle of the fucking street in Rome Open City, it feels like the Hulk is punching you in the chest. It hits so hard, and I think it hits so hard because it is reflective of an actual time and an actual thing that happened. And I feel like the filmmakers have that energy of like, we need to make these movies because things are terrible and like we have to tell our story.
Right.
And sure, SOV isn't as dramatic as like this country is absolutely crippled after a major world war and is drowning in poverty and has lost family. But it's that same energy of like, this is someone that loves going to the video stores and loves renting movies and is all of a sudden like, wait, I can make movies. They don't have sets. They don't have real actors, but it is absolutely a window of time. Window in time. Like you watch Twisted Illusions and you're seeing Tim Ritter and Joel D. Wynkoop where they grew up, where they made movies. It's like a time machine. And that energy you can't match with a studio big budget film with actors and all of the, professional stuff.
Yeah.
Like Shrek, you're watching three weird little horror dudes hanging out, and that is the magic of it.
No, I love that. No, totally. Yeah. I mean, it's the urgency of it, it's the, as you keep saying, like that need to make art,
Absolutely.
at any cost. And so it ends up being a thing where it doesn't even matter if it looks shoddy or anything. It's almost like the shoddiness actually makes it look more tangible, Yeah. Because you feel that urgency.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a reality to it. Yeah. It's time capsule. It's awesome. So to me, that whole mindset was like, okay, start making movies like this. And I get a little sticky brained on making things look era appropriate.
Okay.
Personally, for me, I think shooting on VHS and having like girls wearing those, I don't know, what do they call those pants that girls wear that are like tights or something? I don't know. Modern clothes. But this is what the girls I work with look like. So why is this on VHS? For me, I'm like, no, you have to have jeans from like the 90s. You have to have a stupid Garfield shirt. You have to have like big dumb white sneakers because otherwise we're not going back to that era,
Sure. It's the authenticity.
Yeah, and it's an escape. It's an escape from the people being glued to their stupid Tic Tac things on their phone. And like everywhere you go, there's like a dumb little face talking at you on people's phones. It's like, it's escaping the modern Videodrome that I want nothing to do with.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
When you said the three horror dudes in Shrek, what you made me think of? This is one of my all-time favorite SOVs, but it is like much maligned. Blood Lake.
Oh man, I haven't seen that one in forever.
Oh, forever. Okay.
No, I've seen it. It's the little, the weird little kid that's talking like an adult the whole time, and that's like the whole charm. And then at the end, where like the lake enters, and they're like, "This was brought to you by an act of God." And yes, that is the like, okay, this actually happened, and we just shot it and made it part of the story. Is awesome.
Yeah,
like it's like going back in time and hanging out with those weirdos,
Totally. And I think maybe that's what I love about some SOV is just that feeling of like, did we just find a home video, And how, and I don't even mean to be like disparaging by saying that, like, that's totally an amazing thing, instead of just this super artificial, like Hollywood film where you can't really like relate or resonate with any of it. But now you've got like these kids hanging out in a cabin. And just partying,
like the Polonia brothers. It's just like you're hanging out with these two fucking weirdo 17-year-olds,
Yeah.
That is the charm. Their new stuff. I can't stand their new stuff.
I haven't seen any of it.
It's not good. So that's an example of like, these are two 17-year-old outcasts that have to make movies to all of a sudden Mark is like, I'm going to get a check from a producer. I'm going to have fun and make a movie. Like, to me, that is the decision to be a movie maker versus just being a 17-year-old weirdo that has to get all that adolescent angst and confusion out, and it comes out, via VHS tape, hallucinations, splatter farm, whatever.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
And that's not a diss to Mark. I'm sure he's a cool guy and people love his movies. And hey, he makes a bunch of extra money having fun making movies. That's great. They're just not my thing at all.
No, I respect that. Do you think there's anyone else right now, like current SOV directors that you think are kind of doing it right?
Yeah. Maddie Deering, who did Spirit Animal and Bathtub Shark Attack, definitely has that energy.
Okay.
Bruce Longo.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that name. Yeah.
I haven't watched Busted Babies yet, but from what I've seen and heard, like, that sounds like it's Casper Melted Hair, like, all over. Like, it's just her weird little world.
Okay.
So that seems, there's definitely, like, a bunch of people out there doing the same thing and doing great, if not better, honestly. I think everybody really does capture, like, their respective world and perspective, which, like we said, is what's awesome about it.
Yeah, for sure. And it's nice to see, people, as you say, like having that urgency, Yeah. It kind of reminds me a bit of like punk rock in a way of just like, where's the stereo? I don't know how to play guitar, but I need to write a song. So
yeah, absolutely. Very similar.
Before we start recording, you were saying how like hair metal is like a really big thing for you.
Yeah, hair metal and old school heavy metal in general are like for sure.
Well, that was something that kind of came to mind in terms of like not a metaphor, but something I would compare your work to is sort of like how old school death metal is sort of getting like big again, because all these bands are kind of going back to the beginning to kind of mine that whole area of like style and how to write riffs and everything.
No, that's cool.
So I feel like you've kind of tapped into something similar in that way. So yeah.
No, that's definitely cool.
Yeah. Well, I should wrap this up with you, but I'll shoot the questionnaire your way. And then is there anything else you wanted to plug or mention before we wrap up?
I think Lunch Meat VHS is announcing Emasculator coming out on VHS tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
So anybody, I don't know if they ship to Canada, but anyone in the US that's interested, they're cool guys. They put out Night of the Zodiac 2. You can get Emasculator from Bloodsick Productions, which is Bruce Longo's label. You can get Night of the Zodiac from SRS.
Okay.
Metal Maniac you can email me if you really want a copy, but like it sucks.
Yeah.
So.
Oh no. Okay. I still need to watch that one. It does sound amazing, especially with it being a metal themed horror film.
I mean, it's cool for capturing my like angry posers must die metalhead early 20s mentality, which is kind of embarrassing for me, but it's also like looking back and being like, man, this was how you felt when you were 20.
That sounds
and
great.
And the soundtrack's awesome. But other than that, and Jim Kanya from Nunslaughter's in it, and he passed away, so it's really cool to see him. And Sandy Kruger from Sacred Few is in it, and she also passed away. So like as far as like you wouldn't, I mean, they're just like very local, like Cleveland metal history people, but Sweet. It is cool that they're, captured in it. So there are a couple of good reasons to watch it, but pretty much it's the soundtrack in those two. Everything else is not so good.
Well, I don't know.
You'll see.
Let us be the judge.
So
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So questionnaire time. So it's just 6 questions. Take your time, whatever comes to mind. All right. Okay. What is one item you can't live without?
One item I can't live without. I would say my camera, but I have like 50 cameras.
That works. A camera, you can't live without a camera. You just so happen to have 50.
Yeah, probably more. I have a lot. And every movie I use like 10 of them. Because sometimes they break because they're old. Okay. And sometimes you just need different textures. So sometimes you need a CCD chip. Sometimes you need a tube camera.
Yeah.
So I'm going to cheat and say my cameras because I can't just choose one.
No, that's fair.
I would need to choose at least 12, I think.
Yeah. Have you ever set up a whole bunch at the same time to record the same scene, but all from like different angles?
I haven't, just because I need to be behind the camera at all times.
Okay, gotcha.
That would have probably helped with like the rape scene in Emasculator, but no, I like just being behind the one and kind of sticky braining and fixating on what's going on there.
Right. Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. What was the last great movie you saw in theaters?
In theaters? Oh, man. Like, great?
Yeah, I would say like a 4 out of 5.
I saw, and this was a long, long time ago, but I saw High and Low, one of the original film prints in theaters back in college. And I'm not going to lie, I cried a little bit, just like, because it was like a beat up film print and just seeing a Kurosawa film.
Sure.
Like, on film on an old print.
Yeah.
Was awesome. Yeah. Like, so that's probably not the last, it was the first one that comes to mind. And I saw Last House on the Left on film in theaters, in the same theater.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
That was awesome. Especially because there were all these old people there.
Yeah.
To see, it was one of my college professors, and his regional horror film, The Wednesday Children, was playing. And this guy was like 90 years old. So all of his like past and present students came, and they were showing Last House on the Left after. So there were all these, like, it was either like, you know, like really artsy, fartsy, like, oh, let's go see a film type people, or just super old people that had never seen an exploitation film. And I walked around and I'm like, oh no, you can't leave. They're showing Last House on the Left. And there was like definitely a stunned silence of old like church going folk that were not at all prepared. Wow. And that was pretty awesome.
Did you see a lot of walkouts then?
I don't know. I was pretty like transfixed because I was seeing Last House. But there were definitely like some pale, uncomfortable faces as I was walking out of the theater. I was like, okay, maybe you shouldn't have told these people to stay.
Yeah. Sounds like you emasculated them.
Yeah, a little bit. Some old dudes got emasculated that day.
Okay. Next one. What was the last great concert you went to?
Oh man, I don't really leave my house.
Okay.
I've been to good concerts back when I was social. Seeing Manila Road. Actually, I saw them in Canada, in Montreal. I saw Manila Road.
Oh, cool.
And that was pretty awesome. God, I want to say they played with Satan, one of my favorite new Woblin bands. So that was pretty great. Seeing Iron Maiden and Alice Cooper on the same stage was awesome.
Nice.
Seeing Sicky SpaceX Black Death play in Detroit a handful of years ago was pretty great.
What was that?
Black Death.
They
were one of the first all African American heavy metal bands. They put out their self-titled, I think, in 1984 through Auburn Records in Cleveland.
Oh, okay.
You should give them a listen. Just
cool.
A bunch of like Scorpions and Thin Lizzy worshiping dudes with way more rawness.
Okay.
Like talk about that like punk rock, maybe not the best musicians in the world, but like you've got to make something.
Okay.
You should listen to Black Death.
Black Death. Okay, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, and they were like just like every old band, they were split up and not agreeing. So it was mostly Sicky Spacek, which was the head honcho.
Okay.
But man, his energy was like second to none, and seeing all of those songs like belted out so passionately by like the guy was pretty goddamn awesome.
Oh, that's so cool. And that was in Montreal, did you say? Or no?
Black Death was in Detroit. I saw Manila Road and
right.
Satan in Montreal. I want to say that was forever. God, I think that was like 2012.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't really leave my house too much these days because, all my movies are here and all my books are here and my dogs are here. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. What was the last great book you read?
Right now I'm listening to David Lynch's autobiography, kind of an autobiography because he's reading every other chapter. That's really good. And it's weird because I started it before he died.
Okay.
And it's on the audiobook, it's actually him narrating.
Yeah.
So it was weird being into it. And then Tim called and was like, oh man, David Lynch died. And then I started listening to it and I'm like, oh man, this is like really sad now.
Sure.
But that's great because it goes from like his childhood and then it starts to go movie by movie. And one chapter will be like his co-author, more like a standard biography outlining everything. And then the next chapter is almost like you're sitting across from him drinking coffee. And he's randomly talking at you. Mm-hmm. And it's him talking. And he just like the cadence and the tone of his voice is totally engrossing. Like,
totally.
That's a really good one. Oh, and then before that, I just read Cruising, which was very different from the
Cruising.
movie, but really good. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, there is not a single likable. The book flips between the perspective of the murderer, the cop, and like the lieutenant that is, you know, part of the sting operation. And in the book, there's like 30 cops that are out in that area of New York posing and trying to catch the killer.
Nice.
Yeah, and clearly the cop is like a closeted gay man, and he...
Oh, so it's for sure, whereas in the movie, it's like ambiguous.
No, and he's a hateful bastard because it's all first person, and like you do not like him at all. That was a pretty cool book. That was the last one I finished, but I really like the David Lynch book I'm listening to and reading right now.
Nice. Yeah, I gotta check out Cruising. Actually, I don't even know if I knew it was a book. So
it could not possibly be more different. It doesn't get into like any of like the S&M and underground clubs and stuff. It's more like very flawed men working out their closeted gayness in different ways
and killing people.
But it was good, and the end was awesome.
Okay,
totally different from the movie, but the end was really, really good. Really cool movie rolling in your head at the end of that.
Yeah.
Reading it, yeah.
Okay, I'll look that up. Okay, for his final meal, John Wayne Gacy picked KFC chicken, shrimp, and strawberries. For your final meal before being executed, what would you pick?
Oh, man. Probably nachos giving. And that's a tradition that I started 4 years ago. I don't know if do you guys have like some form of Thanksgiving in Canada? I realize
we have Thanksgiving in October though.
Oh, okay. So, you know, like you have all your standard like turkey, stuffing, mac and cheese. Mm-hmm. So what I would do is instead of Friendsgiving, which I think is kind of stupid and annoying, we did nachos giving.
Yeah.
Where we watched a bunch of trashy movies and we had like crock pots of all of like your Thanksgiving toppings, but you put them on nachos and then you drizzle nacho cheese over it. So you've got nachos with like turkey and mashed potatoes and stuffing. And it sounds gross, but it's not. It's delicious. Everyone who's tried it is like, oh my God, why is this so good? And it is. So that's probably, I would do a big nachos giving plate before I got executed.
That's amazing.
And maybe the guys that were executing me would be like, this is such a great idea. We can't possibly kill you. So that would be good. That's
such a good answer.
Yeah.
Nachos giving. Would you have like a dessert or like a drink or anything with it?
Yeah, probably just something chocolatey and gooey for dessert.
Okay.
I don't know, maybe a good ginger kombucha for my drink. That'd be good.
Okay. Wasn't expecting that. That's like a bit of a curveball.
Yeah, I'm not a drinker. I don't like. I look like someone that would probably be like a pothead and a PBR slammer, but I don't drink or smoke.
Oh, no, I'm not that surprised about that. I mean, you get a lot of work done, so that kind of shows that.
That's true.
Yeah, you don't indulge that much.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. I'm also not social, and I feel like you kind of have to be social to do those things to an extent, you know?
Maybe drinking, but not weed.
Yeah, I guess weed, you could just kind of chill.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, final question. Can art go too far?
Nope.
No, okay. Just no,
yeah,
that's
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think if you're creating, you're creating. And that's cool. And that's better than just wasting away, staring at your phone and contributing nothing.
Fair enough. Yeah. It's a totally subjective question.
Yeah,
so
and I get that, like, okay, maybe if you're making a snuff film and killing people, that's too far. But yeah, I don't know. I think just create.
Just create. It's more important to create than to place any limitations on ourselves.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. I like that. Okay. Well, I will let you go and have a good shift later. I hope you get some more inspirational ideas from animals coming in.
Yeah, from all the cool gory stuff I see. Probably will.
Yeah. Yeah, and when you said it's called The Step Kid, that's your next project?
Yeah, and as soon as I get like a cool old house to shoot it in and also like live in, we'll start working on that, I think.
Cool. Yeah, once that gets going though, or like you finish up, I'd love to watch it and have you back on.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will let you know.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you for your time, Susana Kapostasy.
Kapostasy.
Okay.
It's tough, man. You're good.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
No, it was awesome. Yeah. All right, have a good day.
All right, later, man.
All right,
Bye.
see ya.